So today I have got a very nice one lined up for you. Not only am I harvesting a pond of Sakamaki Gosanke, this is a young breeder that I really highly rate, and I'm putting it out there that in a few years time he's going to be a serious contender, serious player in the koi world. Dainichi Obikai, that's where he's done his apprenticeship. My God, this young lad knows what he's doing. But the main purpose of this video is not to actually document the harvest, it's to give you guys some tips and some insights into how to better select Gosanke when you're working on a budget. This is a perfect batch of fish to demonstrate some of the points I want to make. So let's get stuck into it. Stay tuned, you're going to learn a lot throughout this, and by the end of it, fingers crossed, you're going to know a lot more about picking Gosanke with potential without breaking the bank. Right, so why this is the perfect batch of fish to demonstrate this point right now. One of the big things when it comes to the value of koi, especially Gosanke generally are always the most prestigious and carry and command the most amount of value. But there are hacks where you can really maximize what you've got for your budget without really making too many compromises. One of the biggest ones, first and foremost, though, is getting the breeder. This is something I've spoke about quite a bit. You can't just go to the biggest brand of breeders when you're working on a budget, because your compromise there is going to be on so much. By default, a breeder like that, you're going to have the genetic code in there for sure, and you're probably going to get really strong body and really strong skin quality. The bit you're really going to lack when you're working within a budget is on the pattern front. Now when you start kind of dropping down the levels of breeders, that is where you're going to get a higher pattern level with possibly the same kind of qualities in the fish. Now Sakamaki is a serious breeder. Yeah, I'm really rating this guy. He's not that well known right now. Within Japan he is. Last year at the Nagaoka Koi Show, he dominated all the major awards, a phenomenal result, even winning a lot of them with his Ginn rin line, which is really something special across Kohaku and Showa. With his Gosanke, there's a lot of Dainichi blood in here. This guy is a Dainichi Obikai, which means he's part of that special club of breeders that have just served their apprenticeship at Dainichi. Now, that means there's going to be a lot of blood in there, yes, for sure, but he's got a certain mindset in the way he produces koi. And I can see right from the off, the depth of quality he has in his fish is superb. There's an issue, however. That quality takes a bit of time to come through, and you've got to be patient. There's a lot of fish in here that actually demonstrate that. When I got this batch of fish, they were very insipid and dreary looking, and to the point where there's just no way they would have ever sold. They had the quality in the skin, they just didn't have the hue of the pigment at this point, which is only because of the way they're kept. His fish house is quite dark, not a lot of UV in there, so the colour stays really soft. But in the market, they just don't sell, they don't appeal. For me, people mistake the lack of intensity in the Benny as a bad thing. It's not. So I took this batch of fish knowing that, invested the time in them for a start, really worked it, and now they're at the point where them qualities, that pigment's really picking up, which I knew it always would, and it's coming to the fore. So that's a tip first of all, you know, you're looking for a diamond in the rough in all this. But the big part this is actually going to play into here is the pattern, because that is where value really comes in to the cost of a koi. Now, I know generally when you're learning about appreciation, they say pattern's not important, but in the world of valuing, value is very important. What you shouldn't do is place pattern over the other qualities, but when they're there, pattern then is the final deciding factor on the difference between a koi that would cost hundreds and cost thousands. And this is where this batch of fish really plays in. So a few fish I'm going to show you are all based around understanding the quality, where it's at, where it's going to go, understanding that you need to give the koi time and patience, but then also appreciating that the pattern is going to come, and especially with the likes of Showa and Sinki in here as well. So I'm going to get my selection done now, and then we're going to look at some fish at the end, and I'm going to really hammer home the points. some of the Ginn showers I've pulled out of here so far are just dreamy. One of my absolute favourite varieties. This boy knows how to make one, just can't get any kind of numbers off him. Worth bearing in mind, he's just really an expanding operation, but still a very small one at the minute. But what he's doing with what he's got is remarkable. What a piece. There we go again, look. Oh my days. Look at that Sumi, that is just dreamy. So one thing that is important is you need to understand the journey of the fish, and when a batch such as this, and I am obviously aware of how they've been kept when I saw them, you've got to look through what you're potentially seeing as a fault and a negative and understand that it's actually not, and what's going to happen over time. With the soft coloured pigment, that is important because that is often misinterpreted as bad colour or colour that's going to fade or is faded, when it's actually not. It's never actually been right up there. It's not mistaking quality with intensity, especially with Benny. That's a really, really important point. If I'd have done that with these, I'd have walked away from this batch of fish, and this batch of fish is dripping in quality. I am absolutely buzzing for these. This is what I love, look, and you can't ignore. I am focusing a lot on the size, and this is lagging behind, but holy shit, what a fish. When you pull something like that up, it just absolutely lights me up. Look at the quality, pattern's insane. So I am only looking for 50 pieces to get back in here. Not that that's relevant to this video, but I really need to keep this level down now to push these on to the size of this side that I want to produce, and allow them to continue the path that they're on properly. Tell you what, I am one, I love being patient and watching a fish on a journey, but it is really nice. You can't deny fish like that just pop and grab your attention. That is one of the points I'm going to prove, however, is that we will come back to this later in the video in more depth, but naturally, because demand will be so sought after for a fish like that is more finished now and more predictable across the industry. In Japan here it's all no different. That will naturally command a higher price straight away because people will literally be fighting for it. Often in these days fish like this are put into auctions and just left for people to fight it out. When there's fish in there, actually there's a Ginn show I just moved a minute ago that I would actually pick over this every day of the week, but that is what the market dictates. Right, so I've got my selection done now, and I'm going to just get a few fish, very specific ones, to really hammer the point home that I'm on about how you can extract the most amount of value when you're making a prospective purchase. Yeah, let me get them, we'll see where we're at, but hopefully it's going to just open up your mind. But the big thing around all this is patience. If you ain't got any patience, you're screwed, let me tell you. But in the koi game, when you have, and then you learn how to get the most out of a fish as well, that's when you can really build a collection without completely breaking the bank. Right guys, I want to ask a favour of you. If you're enjoying what you're watching and you'd like to continue supporting me, I'd greatly appreciate it if you can hit like, and if you really want to go one further, hit the subscribe button to me if you're watching my videos on a regular basis and you're not already subscribed. It does help the channel, it helps push the videos out to more people. My whole mission in this is to help and educate as many people as I can. You can help with me with that mission just by doing that one little thing. Plus, I'm not going to lie about it, it makes me feel good as well seeing them numbers go up. So first part to all this. Now, this is a bowl of fish, all that I've selected to continue growing. So the base level quality is actually really high. The bit I just want to explain about is value in fish and the risks, and I'm going to say risks, or the time, the things you've got to look out for that will dictate that fish potentially being of a lower price. Now that's not always the case, because someone such as me who knows what I'm looking at is not necessarily going to take that risk in selling a high potential young fish off too cheap just because it needs a time. I'm going to give it that time. A lot of breeders in Japan will also give it that time. This is going to come in for you where you're potentially looking in a dealer's store who have a different mentality towards fish, just looking to get them shifted out. And generally what will happen is in a mixed tank such as this, I'm going to show you the fish that will instantly kind of get pulled out of there, which then might also get separated at a different price point for that very reason. And then the stuff that's likely to linger around where you can actually find the real value and the long-term value in these fish. So first up, as we look in this bowl, you'll see there's some, particularly with the Ginn shower and one of the showers that I've got here, they're a lot more finished and developed with the Sumi, and that's the first area where a lot of people tend to look, because those fish generally do have more sex appeal at this moment. It's easier to see where they're going, so it's more natural that your eye is going to be drawn to it. Now I am going to say there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever, but what I am going to tell you is you will pay a tax for that. Great story I can share with you now is many years ago I was with a client looking at some very high-end 2-year-old Sinki at Marido. There was one fish in the pond that was an absolute boss. Big posturing body, Sumi all up, looking fantastic. There was another fish in there that I was really struck on, but the Sumi was really down, barely showing any, and body wasn't all quite there yet in it. We put both fish in the bowl. The more finished one was actually 3 times the price of the other one. The word out the breeder's mouth, koi show fish, instantly dictates a higher value because it's ready at that moment for a koi show. The fish I was looking at, the breeder quoted that 1/3 of the price, actually said it was his favourite fish. It was the better quality fish. But he, and don't get me wrong, there's a business element to all this as well, he knew that that premium one, that more finished one, is the one everyone would want to go for at that moment, and it could command the price. Yes, there's elements of risk in that, as we're going to explore here in the other fish, that the Sumi had to come up. But, you know, that's the risk that you take. But for 1/3 of the price, for me, it's worth it. You know, if you had that total budget, you could have bought 3 of those, and I guarantee you'd have ended up with a worldie at the end of it. That's also something to bear in mind. So back to these, if we take a look now at the bowl overall, you'll see the showers and the Ginn showers that I'm talking about, and they are naturally very attractive. Now, that's not to say, there's a term that's used to say that, oh, these are more finished. That's not necessarily the case. They're just more developed at the moment, because each of these I'm looking at has still got something to do. There's still Sumi to improve. It's just that it's much easier to see where the fish is at and possibly where it's going to head. Then in the bowl you see others that just generally won't be as attractive right now. They're the fish where I see real value, and the ones where when you analyse those fish, there's a chance of you getting more value for your money and bang for your buck there in this as well. So let's take a closer look first of all at a couple of Ginn showers and explore exactly what I'm talking about. So first of all, I'm going to show you the 2 Ginn showers that I'm talking about. Both of these fish right now got a lot of sex appeal. In a shop or when listed on a photograph online, most people are going to appreciate those fish, see them for what they are, and they're going to go. On that basis, they will command a premium on the price right now at this moment in time. And you can see it, nothing wrong with that. They're highly attractive. When you actually look at the fish, you can see the Sumi is not fully finished. There's still room for improvement even in those fish. Don't misunderstand that point. That's also what factors into the price. It's not just because they're more finished, it's because they're more predictable, more attractive now, likely to sell faster now, but there is still room for improvement. That's the important thing. A fish like that, where there is no room for improvement, technically shouldn't be valued as highly because they're going to go downhill. But when you've got all them factors together, that's what really starts stacking in the value to the fish. So if we take a closer look, you'll see there's elements here where some of the Sumi is still sat down. As a lot of these fish grow, they're going to stretch out further. Slight areas of shiroji and pattern movement are going to change the look. The bodies are really strong, and they're just great pieces overall. So not finished fish, but certainly very attractive and much more predictable, but still with room to grow and improve in the future. So these 2 Ginn shower now are very different examples. These are the ones that you've got half a chance that they're probably, if they're sat in a dealer's pond, they're being overlooked because they just don't look as attractive at this moment in time. But the qualities are all there. The Benny qualities look fantastic, but you can assess that across all the fish you're looking at. This comes down to these varieties with Showa and with Sinki, that the Sumi can be the real game changer in all this. Now for me, these are showing some indication of where they're heading, so we're not working completely blind, and the qualities do all check out really nicely. The gamble in it is the Sumi going to come? And that, when I'm pricing it, if I'm going to sell it, and if a breeder's pricing it, is the determining factor. And generally we know that you can't charge a premium for an unknown, unlike with the other two fish. Therefore, there is that element of gamble. That is why sometimes, in this instance, I'm just going to grow them, but a breeder might also choose not to sell it and wait a little bit longer as well. That is a reality of the industry, and it's just a case of waiting for time. Honestly, a lot of us wouldn't sleep at night knowing we'd let a potential worldie go for an absolute song in the fish raising game, because from our side of the fence, we rely on that. The high-end fish, the few pieces, are what help keep the whole machine moving over time. So these two fish, like I say, it's all about, I can see the qualities. It's two very different bone structures in the fish, so we've got to bear that in mind. But it's just a matter of time waiting for the Sumi. And there's some elements in there that tell me potentially as well the Sumi is going to be of a much higher standard when it comes to it. But as you can see, even as we're talking about it, the real thing in here, it's all comes down to this pattern side of things right now, what's dictating that value. So I think one in particular I'm going to show you longer term is going to potentially be the real winner, but probably looks, you know, kind of the least attractive right now at this moment. So let's take a closer look at them too, and you can see what I'm talking about. So first of all, this fish I'm talking about is the one that I believe over time could potentially be the winner. It's got a really strong bone structure, really great long head to it. I like the Benny quality. It's got amazing shine and luster and great length to the body. So I think out of the four fish, it's actually the body champion. The Benny pattern sat really nice as well. There's good distribution over the body, technically very strong. Just that element it lacks, and the Ginn is good. The element it lacks right now is the Sumi being up, but it is showing signs all over the body, and where it is showing signs, the quality is really high, and that's what's exciting me. I can see here, we can look at the Motoguro in the fin, sat back off the front ray, which is always an indicator of quality. And yeah, just overall for me, I'm looking at where the Sumi sat under the skin as well, and I think that could be a really enticing, attractive pattern when that Sumi does surface. Just needs the time. So the next one, a nice Ginn kindai Showa. Again, got all the base qualities. The thing it lacks right now is the Sumi. This fish does have a smaller bone structure, so it's never going to be quite as powerful as the other three fish we've looked at. That's not to say it's not going to grow. I just know there's going to be limitations there in that respect, but there is naturally with Ginn anyway. Big thing with that one, what I'm looking at, and this is already more developed with the Sumi than it was, but what I am seeing is a lot of Subo Sumi, where the Sumi sits on the Shiroji. That typically forms the very highest quality overall. Recently, the memoir on the head has really progressed, and what we're potentially looking at, and I can see it, is we can see the blue under the skin, where there's potential Sumi sat on the shoulder, which will really be the finishing part for that fish. That is a gamble, however. Will it, won't it? There's an area just nearby on some Benny that's showing, so I'm actually very confident that it will develop over time, but that will be a real game changer for that versus where it's at now. Certainly not one that I'd want to sell. I want to watch the journey, because I believe there's a really super strong fish in there over time. But again, if you stumbled across something like that in a tank, I'd absolutely snap it up. The nice thing you've got here is as well, depending on how they're priced, you could potentially, for what one of those more finished examples would run at, potentially bag yourself a couple of prospects like the two we've seen, which basically is halving your risk. You take the two, and if the quality's right, you've got double the chance of getting one really good one out of them, a potential fish to move on and even recoup some costs from. That's a mindset worth considering. So yeah, I'm really excited about the prospect of that one. We can see the Motoguro, the Sumi sat off the front ray again, which is a really important consideration for Sumi quality. But that fish, I believe, in a matter of no time as well, is really going to start showing its true colours. With the Benny pattern it's got as well, that potential Subo Sumi sat in and around it, very exciting stuff. So now that I think you've hopefully got the gist of what I'm talking about in regards to the finish of the fish and where it's at, dictating value, which is just the reality of the job, you can probably get a better understanding now of some of the Sinki and Showa that are in the bowl. Now, just to sort of demonstrate it, I don't actually think, to me, it's the least attractive fish in here, but this Showa has got a lot of quality. It really has, and it's got a really good Sumi quality, but I don't think it's the most attractive fish. It won't be completely black as it gets bigger, as I think some people misunderstand, but it is always going to be a heavily Sumi'd fish. Areas of that Shiroji will always stay there and be a part of the pattern. I think they'll actually be more prominent as the fish grows. But it's a very, very safe fish, an easy fish to understand, and to a lot of people will be the most attractive of the Showas in there, versus the likes of this one. And even versus the likes of this one, which is actually in quite a messy looking phase at the moment. The only difference is the Benny quality is really good on all the fish, so we don't have to worry about that. The difference is the Sumi. Let's take this fish for example. There's a hell of a lot still to happen with it, and a lot of unknowns, because it's not even showing signs of the Sumi in a lot of areas at the moment. So some people would even misunderstand that as being a Sinki. It is 100% Showa. You can see Motogoro forming in the fins, Sumi all over the head, so we've got potential memoir. But what I like about this is it's got a really, I mean, we'll look at the Benny pattern, greatly balanced Benny pattern. We can see some underlying Sumi in areas of the skin. This dark blue area here, all Sumi. Again on the other side here, all Sumi. And this type of Sumi as well is likely to appear in different areas of the Benny as well over time. But it is a risk. We don't truly know with that one, and it is the least attractive. That is the sort of fish that's likely to still be lingering in a tank somewhere, while the first one I've shown you has been snapped up. But for me, that's the fish I want to go for. It's a journey. It's going to be exciting to watch as well. But I think the quality, certainly body-wise, every Showa in here beats the first one I've shown you. So that's an element not to be ignored. But again, just to force the point home, you see with this one, look, that's actually one of my favourite fish in the whole pond. I think will potentially be the very best Showa. And body-wise, it just absolutely dominates. But it's just waiting. In this one, we can see more of the Sumi, so there is a lot more predictability. Not all there yet, and somebody who knows what they're looking at will know that as well and factor that in. So it's not a fish you're likely going to pick up cheap. However, if you had something with similar qualities that would be more finished already, you'd probably expect that to be around double the price. And again, that's just the reality of the job and how it works. There's a risk, yes. Will all the Sumi develop? We don't know, but for me, from all my experience, I'm confident it will from what I'm seeing. We potentially got memoir on the head, but it all just takes time. It could need another year to 18 months to really show. But from what I'm seeing, I have absolute confidence that that is going to do so. Great piece, but the qualities overall, for me, far dominate over this fish we looked at the beginning. This one, I say it's in that messy phase. So we've got a lot with this one, a lot of underlying. I mean, the Benny quality is really high. It's exciting because it's got a lot of Sumi breaking, and what's breaking is of a really high level. But again, that messiness that it's got right now will really put a lot of people off, and potentially even fish like that swimming around in a tank. Even at this side here, look, the messiness continues. You've got the Sumi just starting to break in all these areas. Doesn't look attractive, but that is new Sumi forming. Don't forget that. With that fish, the change is actually going to be quite rapid. I think over the autumn especially, you're going to see a completely different fish overall with that. The messiness is just coming because it's in a transition. The Sumi's coming through, and you're going to get a completely different fish in not a lot amount of time at all. Compared with this one we looked at, that's going to take a lot more time to get to the same point. That one's not going to be very long at all, and that messiness is soon going to become refined as that Sumi actually pulls together and knits together. And you can see there, look, what is coming through. Got a real lot of luster and shine to it. Very prominent fish. But like I say, I've seen many people call them messy. They're not ones you should ignore. You can see the Motogoro again sat off the front ray. There's a lot of quality stacked in that fish. and over time you're going to win. But don't forget as well, they are such an exciting journey to watch that change. And right now we're on to Sinki, the last one. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same principles, just to hammer it home a little bit. We see 2 or 3 examples we've got in here, 4 actually. I mean, this is your one straight away, looking really good, refined. Sumi's all up, fish looks nicely balanced. That's going to have a lot of that sex appeal over an extreme example in this one. Now this fish is a major gamble, not going to lie. What I like about it is the quality's all there. It's got a great body to it, which is what I'm assessing. Skin quality, benny quality, everything all checks out. And I like the benny pattern. It's got a nice balance on the body. The gamble's the Sumi. Now I can see Sumi sat under the skin in loads of different areas of it. Back here, look, the blue in the skin, in the dorsal. There's some around this area as well. Now from me seeing what's in this area, I'm confident, knowing that type of Sumi, that it's going to come. I have that confidence. The problem is with that fish right now, for me to try and price it, I don't truly know the end result. So it couldn't go for a high sum because there's too many unknowns in there. And that, a lot of people will mistake that as a bad kohaku. It's not whatsoever. And it's probably not far off some of that Sumi actually breaking through and giving you more of an idea of where it's going to head. Looking at it all, it's going to potentially be a lot of Subo Sumi, which is one to bear in mind. That's the best sort of Sumi that we can get. But again, my God, it's going to be a journey, that one. I have faith that by the spring, you're going to really start to see where that fish is heading. But again, that's the problem. We just don't know. There's too many unknowns. A breeder might be in the same situation where they think the quality's all there, and it really is. It's just that pattern element stops us from able to be pricing it accordingly and in the right way. And do we want to pass that risk on? Well, if we do, it has to be passed on in the price as well. So in this case, I'm going to keep that and enjoy that journey and see where it heads. But again, if you're stumbling across a fish like that in a dealer's tank, it's got that level of quality, no Sumi showing, snap it up. And if the dealer doesn't see any value in it, you might be able to negotiate yourself a really nice deal on it at the same time. But generally versus, like I say, a Sinki like this, you know, if a new batch of fish has been released, there's a good chance that's going to be one of the first ones to get whipped out of there. Again, not a bad thing. The quality is all there and it's a lot more predictable. If that's what you want, great, but do understand you will pay a premium for that when there's real quality in here, like this piece again, look. I mean, this one's even got really soft colour at the moment. You can see in there, look, so much pigment in all this, but it's got all the quality elements and it's showing a nice bit of Sumi on this side actually, which I like. It's Subo Sumi again, look, sat on the Shiroji. You can see elements of it all over. I'm actually really excited about this prospect. The Benny pattern as well, if you look at that, people might murmur because it's heavier at the front, lighter at the back, but that's where the Sumi can come in, certainly with Showa and Sinki, and completely rebalance that with what Sumi can develop. So again, a really exciting piece, and for me, I would take that one over this one every day of the week. Because that, again, for me personally as well, I like the journey that they're going to go on, and I like the gamble as well. But that mindset is, if you've got the chance of maybe picking up, say, the 2 pieces, they're a bit more underdeveloped in a tank versus the one you'll pay a premium for being a bit more finished, my advice would be go for the 2, raise them both, because you're reducing your risk. If you go all in on the one and the one goes downhill, which it still could do, there's no guarantees in any of this, then at least at that moment, that's a fish you might want out of your collection, where you've got double the chances going down the other route of getting one really good one out the end of it, and over a long period of time having really enjoyed the journey as well. It's how I look at koi, and I've looked at them for years, and to be honest with you, it's what the breeders tend to do when they're sorting out stock. You'll tend to find that they put the most sellable stuff forward, and fish that need a bit of time and there's a bit of chance and risk, they will sit on to wait and see what happens themselves. Okay, so I hope I've laboured the point enough there for it to sink in. If you're trying to squeeze a fish into your budget to get the absolute most, whatever budget you're working with, consider that. Spreading your risk, buying 2 instead of the 1, but taking the chance where, you know, especially with varieties with Sumi, there's that chance where you gamble on what it's going to do in the future, because everyone involved in that's taking a risk. and you can really win at that point. But you need to give that kind of fish time. You know, a year is not enough. It might take 2 years. You know, if you're buying tosai or young nisai, at 3 years old, 4 years old is when they're going to start really coming to fruition. So you have got to invest the time in them. Unless one really goes downhill, like from a Benny perspective, then at that case it might be time to move it on. And yeah, don't forget, a lot of pricing is dictated and where the price sits by the pattern. Pattern is not spoken about that much, but honestly it's the real big element. So many Japanese koi, every fish I've shown you today has got good base qualities, body and skin. It's going to be the patterns that dictate the end value of it, and this is something we're going to talk more about on the channel. But for now, I hope that point sunk in. Be a risk taker, because that's when you're potentially going to get the win, but do spread your risk as much as you can. You know, I've said it before, you know, if you had a budget of £500, say, buying 2 fish at 250 or even 5 at 100, I think is a better strategy than going all in on the one at 500. Unless you're lucky enough to have a really big budget and go for 5 at 500 rather than the one at 2.5 grand. Same principles apply throughout it though, no matter what that budget is. For now, I'm going to continue growing these. We will get to see some of the progress of some of them pieces later on, but like I say, I do hope the point has sunk in. Be patient, guys, take some risks. The last bit to remember in all that is the breeder. You know, going for breeders outside that real top. If you're trying to do this with a Sakai Dainichi fish, you're going to pay a premium and really compromise on that pattern point. This is the bit that really gets you with them big farms. Say you're working with a £500 budget, at a Dainichi and a Sakai, it's absolutely naff all. That's just a reality. With someone like Sakamaki, however, that is going to buy you a hell of a fish out of this particular batch, and you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. You've got the quality aspects in it all. There's a lot of fish that are going to grow well in here, but you're going to get a lot more in a pattern perspective longer term, especially if you take some of them gambles as well. You have a chance of really ending up with a top piece in your collection. Heaps of quality. You know, the Benny quality is easy to assess. It's really the Sumi. Oh, for fuck's sake. Hello. Yes, you. Just filming. This might be an outtake. So the next two yeah, that's the one, mate. This Sinki as well. I'm going to be a beast. Well worth gearing up half your wages for that call, I reckon.